What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Movie Positive. Welcome back to Drunk Reviews. And today we are reviewing Season 1. I don't know if we're doing seasons.
Episode 6?
It's just Episode 6 of WandaVision. You know why you're fucking here.
Jeez, buddy.
Cheers, Drunk Reviews, and I'm just gonna start off by just saying one word. Holy motherfucking shit, what a great episode.
It's like a bunch of words.
Fucking great episode. Now, if we're talking Drunk Reviews, we are really drunk right now. But
I mean, what an episode, though.
What an episode. And just to
so
backtrack,
much going on.
We talked about it heavily in the last thing, the Evan Peters thing. The Evan Peters thing, guys.
I mean, who over the last week hasn't been obsessed about the Evan Peters thing?
And the Evan Peters thing, and just going into that, my hype was just, I was exceptionally hyped for
It's pretty much all we talked about last week. If you're watching the videos, you know.
Because I had that Marvel hype, but I'm also like, I know you're a little different than me. I like the X-Men movies, and I do really, but I think you're on
I don't like them.
But I think we're on the same page that we really do like Evan Peters as
who doesn't
Quicksilver.
love Evan Peters? I mean,
and going back
we were talking about this, the idea of being able to take that universe and salvage the best parts is such a good idea. Evan Peters and Magneto, I'm sure we talked about that in the last video.
But he's the bright spot of those movies, and even and I'll be honest, I went back and I watched all those movies, and he literally steals every fucking scene he's in.
Well, Wanda is losing control. Wanda is losing control because there's a weird thing going on with Evan Peters' character where he seems to be aware of the fact that he can't be read too far into. Like, he seems to know something's up,
right?
But he also knows a lot about her and does seem to have a different perspective on it.
That's right. And then I think we talked about it prior. We analyzed this to the T, even not in our video, just me and you talking.
We only get 50 minutes. We talk about this like an hour a day. So
so there was a part of us, and I've said it to you too, that maybe that's not Evan Peters. Maybe it's someone else. But
but it's him now. We know now. It's him. Yeah.
There's still like a 5% of me that maybe not, but the way he was portrayed in that episode, because remember when Wanda talks about like her parents and stuff, and
and he literally goes, "You're testing me." He knows that she's doing that because she's unsure of him. She's
unsure of him, and
he even gives her.
He's even unsure of her, though.
He gives her reason. He seems to be buying into the thing from my perspective.
Okay, here's my theory. I think he is aware of Wanda.
Yes, as not being correct. From his perspective.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what his perspective is. I really even more after this episode, I really don't fucking know why that is him. And know what? Let's just cut ahead. Let's go to that part. The part where they show him. Remember when Wanda looks at him and he got shot?
Yeah, just like Pietro did.
That's Pietro, though.
Yeah.
But cut back. He said Uncle Peter. Do you remember that?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, that's not. That's not Uncle. That's Peter Maximoff. That's X-Men Maximoff.
Yeah.
So, there's still a 5% of me that thinks that's not him. But after this episode, I'm more inclined to think that that's X-Men.
I think it is
X-Men.
Yeah.
Peter Maximoff.
I think he has a mixed amount of knowing what's going on, and he doesn't.
But there's still the part. There's still the part of me who's why is he there, and how the fuck is he there?
Yeah, he does seem to have an awareness that she doesn't. Where Vision is like, I want to go out and do the night watch thing, and she's like, that's not what you're supposed to do. And he steps in and he's like, what? And he even uses a script term at that point. He's like, what? He doesn't say he's got an arc, but he's like, he's got a conflict, he's got a thing. He says something along his, he says something almost like a script writer, and then like redirects her. Like, he seems to have this thing where, like, she showed up right as things were breaking down.
Yeah.
So he seems to be showing up to try to, like, redirect and sort of not take control, but he has way more of an awareness of it than they all do.
Theory here. Let's say Evan Peters' X-Men character was taken from his universe by whoever is doing this right now. Yeah. I still think a big part is Wanda, but I still think there's another part in play. I don't think this is... I think you and I agree on this. This isn't all Wanda.
Yeah.
So let's say that person, maybe it's Catherine Hahn's husband or Mephisto or whatever.
I mean, we've exhausted the possibilities in previous episodes. We've talked about
it. So let's say that person took Evan Peters' Peter Maximoff into this universe, and they just kind of threw him in there.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know that. Because that's really not his sister. Maybe, I don't know.
It seems like to do this the right way, you have to have the body.
Yeah.
And they don't have Pietro's body.
So did they take Peter's body? Did they take Evan Peters' body?
Somebody pointed this out to me and I thought it was interesting. I don't know what to make of this piece of information, like a lot of shit in WandaVision, but the timeline in which Apocalypse and all that takes place,
It's
like
the
late
80s,
80s or
yeah,
90s, is like this exact...
I think Dark Phoenix is the 90s and X-Men Apocalypse is the 80s, which is
he's
when he shows up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By the way, Malcolm in the Middle.
Okay, let's just go to that.
I wrote a note here that said, "Do you think Paul Bettany called Bryan Cranston for acting notes?"
I mean, if he did, that's awesome.
And what I wouldn't do to hear that phone call.
Like, okay, let's go back to the beginning. Like, the way it started and the way they did the whole camera, immediately how Steve
You're
was
literally
like,
you
back in the middle! Back in the middle!
You stood up and you went, you went, they're going full Malcolm in the Middle, Pat.
Because I know they do the sitcom in the 90s and 90s.
They went all in.
Yeah, what is full 90s and Malcolm in the Middle? And I think I can speak for both of us. I grew up with Malcolm in the Middle. Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Life is unfair.
Yeah. Life is unfair.
Life is unfair. Like, and they went full it, and I love that they're going the aesthetic of it. But I do like that they're cutting back. Like in the earlier episodes, it was all 60s. It's all 60s Wanda.
Yeah.
This one's cutting more back to the actual real world of Jimmy Woo, Darcy, and Monica. And let's get to that. That 3-man squad is fucking awesome. Squad goals times 10. That squad is fucking awesome. The way Jimmy Woo just started fucking hitting on people, and the way Monica...
I was not expecting that at all, but I was all for it. I mean,
okay, so here's another thing I noticed with Monica. There was something about... I think they talked about Monica's body and the way her cells, like, changed.
Yes. Going through the barrier changes your molecular structure to some degree.
So comic-wise, Monica Rambeau does have, like,
powers.
In a way, Captain Marvel level powers. Which, by the way, did you notice the Carol Danvers drop? Where he's just like, I know who you are.
Yeah,
you and I were just both just like...
And he says, I know your history with Carol Danvers. We mentioned in the last episode, her reaction is anything but warm when her name is mentioned, when Captain Marvel's name is mentioned.
Yeah.
So I think that history is complicated, but because he works for Sword Public.
Yeah.
Definitely public.
Yeah, but do you feel like Sword... Okay, so we don't know when Sword was established, but I feel like they knew about Carol Danvers pre-Endgame. Because pre-Endgame, no one really knew who Captain Marvel was.
No.
But Nick Fury knew who she was, and I feel like Nick Fury may have told someone.
Probably. I mean, I'm sure there's
Coulson knew. Coulson knew too. Yeah. So maybe someone knew.
And there's all reason to believe she's been back to Earth in that 5 years at some point.
Right. Yeah. Especially in that 5 years, she was alive. So.
Especially to see Marie Rambeau and her daughter.
Yeah, and probably post Thanos when he snapped. Like she was talking to the Avengers. She was pretty much in the Avengers. She knew stuff like that. So.
Yeah.
But that 3-man squad, like, honestly, as someone who was a Darcy hater, I will say, I'll admit it, movie pause, I'll admit it, I really like her in this.
She's great, man.
I really like her in this.
Hayward abandons her, and she looks back, she's like, are you serious?
Yeah.
She's in there now.
Well, yeah, okay, so let's get to that part. So...
People on the edge are not operating.
If
you drive too far away from Wanda, it's like a bad cell phone signal. You're like...
It starts... And they even said, what was the name of the street? It was...
Ellis Street.
When you get to Ellis Ave.
I wrote it down, I think.
So, when Vision hits Catherine...
That's past Ellis Avenue, that's what I wrote.
Well, Vision touches Catherine Hahn, and we saw that in the early trailer. You and I talked about it.
She's in some weird shit.
That was some weird, trippy shit.
Yeah.
But when Vision gets to the edge of it, and I said this to you, I got fucking Truman Show vibes from that.
Yeah.
Like, straight up, like,
good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Yeah, like,
we
straight up,
had
like,
to rewind because
the whole scene with Vision where it actually goes there, you see he starts disintegrating. So which it's such a sad, depressing way, but Vision can't... Vision
exist
is all...
outside of that.
Vision
can't exist outside of that.
Because you don't... To be Vision...
When he first stepped out, when he first stepped out, and we don't know that necessarily, because if you remember in Infinity War, they say you take the stone out, there's a whole lot of vision. There might be a way This is not the way.
Might be a way.
So when he steps out of there, I remember when we were watching this, I was like, oh, because he stepped out and the stone was still there, and I thought he was existing outside the barrier, but then it pulls him back in, and it literally starts, and as he's fighting it, it starts ripping his skin off.
Yeah.
Like, he has to go back. There's no...
he can't.
So as soon as I saw that, I was like, fuck, there's no Infinity Stone there. That's an illusion. That's not real.
No, Wanda, I feel like, because how hypothetically...
And she throws Evan Peters when he says, what, your dead husband can't die twice?
Yeah. And she just throws him.
And there's something there I do want to say. This is just a thought that came in my head in the last few minutes, is Hayward knows something, obviously. He's tracking everybody inside of it.
He said this.
Vision gets outside of the barrier, and Evan Peters' Quicksilver tries to stop her from expanding it. He tries to distract her. Because if you remember, Evan Peters steps in and is like, who cares if he goes out there? And he's not on the watch tonight, the guy says to him. And Evan Peters let that happen. Was aware that he was going that direction, walking towards the barrier, and was distracting Wanda.
Yeah.
While that's all going on. And then as soon as it gets real, and the one son, who I guess has to be a real person, the kids are real kids, and the one is like Xavier for some reason, and the other's fucking Quicksilver, and he's literally like, I hear dad, and she expands the barrier. Quicksilver was trying to stop that from happening. I think he wants Vision's body back, and he has some level of control. Hayward's involved.
I'm so conflicted throughout this whole fucking show, and it's so exciting.
I love it. Yeah,
it's so exciting.
Well, the week-to-week Marvel thing is so wonderful because it gives us a way to talk about Marvel every single week, and the way they're presenting it, like this chapter way, is such a mystery box.
It's such like a Twin Peaks, like who killed Laura Palmer. It's like every week we're just like,
and then by the time you get to the end of it, you're like, that's not even the question I have anymore. You're like, who killed Laura Palmer is at the bottom of my list.
Yeah. So we literally have. So
what do you mean the owls aren't what they seem? Yeah. I'm sitting here watching WandaVision.
Not what he seems.
Exactly. I'm sitting here watching WandaVision. Initially, I'm like, who's causing this? And now I'm like, the fuck is Evan Peters doing here?
It makes no sense. But I will say this though, the way it's a balance of both, because the way he moves is the way Peter Maximoff moves in X-Men, but there's also that little like trail thing.
They crossed it a little.
Which is Pietro. Because if you go back and watch the X-Men movies, Peter does not move like that.
You know, there was a long Marvel conversation about how to mix those effects, and they talked about it.
And they did it so perfectly to where it's like fucking with my hand. Is that him or is that not him?
The deep cut fan, it's like, is it this or this?
Yeah,
like, I can tell the difference.
It's so
they
deliberate.
Literally like 50-50 line where you're like, fuck you!
It's just like,
Well, you know what they're doing? The way that Evan Peters is diverting Wanda through this whole episode is exactly what Kevin Feige is doing to us. We're like, I know how to find out. Here's the answer, and you go to look, and you're like, fucking goddamn it!
Because those guys are doing the same thing. They're like, okay, we're gonna go back and we're gonna watch Dark Phoenix and all those bullshit movies, and we're gonna figure out a way.
I feel like this show is written backwards. They were like, I have this great reveal here. How do we go all the way back to the 50s? So it's like, and then you slowly go.
Since I think that Disney Plus Super Bowl reveal like over a year ago, that Wanda, the classic
WandaVision.
No, the classic comic book Wanda character. Mm-hmm. Like her in the
Halloween spectacular.
Yeah, that was literally in the original Disney Plus. But think about it now, the fact that Evan Peters was in that scene and literally over like a full year, because the Super Bowl was this week. That was a full year ago, and they had that right there, and we didn't know.
Everybody gets so hyped. They're like, I can't wait to see her in her original comic costume.
Just think about a year from now.
And he's on the other side.
He's literally right there.
Literally, if you turn the camera like 6 degrees, the whole audience is like, can't wait to see her in her original. What the fuck is he going?
Just to think of that now.
Total meltdown. Evan Peters showing up is not the biggest thing that's going to happen. Because just classic storytelling, you don't do that in the middle of your story. Or else the rest of your story is boring.
Especially with a show that's like such mystery.
Something bigger's coming. Something larger is coming. And it's going to be intrinsically tied to that.
Okay.
But something bigger is coming. Where you start with this show is
where you
very high interest. And you're immediately, when you see the first episode, you're like, I am intrigued and I want answers to these questions. Same thing with Lost. I'm intrigued, I want to answer these questions. But by the time you get 5 episodes in, you have 40 new questions that are way more important than your initial question.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching our video. We're going multiverse. Tell other people in your multiverse to subscribe to us. And as always,
Excelsior.
Excelsior.